All right. So, looks like we're about a quarter of the way through. This class stretches out a long ways, right? It's 8 modules put into 16 weeks. So should be plenty of time to do paperwork and stuff. I guess first off, go ahead and jump in with this. There's going to be a little bit of reshuffling of the groups. When I first split it up, y'all probably seen the roster. There's 8 people in the class. So when I hit that split up button, it made 2 groups of 3 and 1 group of 2. And after that first big set of paperwork, it was clearly a disproportionate amount of work on that group of 2. I split it up 3 ways. It splits up a whole lot better. So I think while we're still kind of early in the semester, go ahead and shuffle the groups around into 2 groups of 4, which should make it easier for everybody, right? One more way to a little bit more divvying up the work. So it should make it a little easier on everybody, and not group 2 won't, or not group 2, the group of 2 people isn't going to be overwhelmed the whole time. So hopefully that'll make it a little easier on everybody. And it's kind of like practice for the real world, right? In the real world, projects are going to get canceled and teams get shuffled around. So got a couple things to go over. And then when we split up into groups, you all will be able to fill in your new group member, or one of them doesn't appear to be here right now. So I guess you can send him I'll send him an email as soon as we split up into groups and let him know that it happened for sure. I kind of mentioned it already, but I was expecting him to be here this evening to actually be here for the discussion on it. So I'll send him an email, let him know it happened. Y'all can reach out to him, send him the project requirements and feasibility, the stuff he have wrote up, because I know it was spelled out very, very well in the thing. I guess we'll go ahead and do that first thing. I'll share the screen while I go shuffle those around. I probably could have had Ivy Learn open, because right before class, I went and checked message boards to see if there was anything there. I should have just left that open. Save a few seconds here. Oh, and while we're waiting on the internet and stuff, I don't know if anybody particularly cares too deeply about it, but Emily Post, you've probably heard of them. They're set the standards for politeness and civility and all that. Emily Post did finally weigh in with Zoom sessions with all this stuff. So much of the world's gone to this. They did finally set up some standards of what should be considered polite behavior in a Zoom session. But in all the classes that I've been doing this in, I haven't ever seen any problem. And for the most part, everybody fits right with those standards. If you feel like glancing at that and seeing what the HISA standard list of rules for what is considered civil and polite behavior is, they did finally formally write that out. Most of it makes sense, though. It's what people do with being polite, using chat rooms and hand gestures. One of the big ones I took note of was the drinks. Like, they went with the business meeting thing, so coffee and water are okay, but like soda and energy drinks don't convey an air of professionalism, I guess was the terminology for it. I don't know if you all have ever seen what those list of rules look like, but I just thought, while we had a second, I thought I'd mention that there is finally a list of rules. Yeah, so this group with just 2 people, I'm going to bring those up into the other one. So now there's going to be 4 people in each group, which should make the workload a little easier, right? Instead of dividing for groups 1 and 2, instead of dividing it up 3 ways, you're dividing it up 4 ways. I believe I can just drag these. Yep, looks that way. Yeah, so Jeffrey will be part of group 1, and Devin will be part of group 2. Y'all be able to fill him in. Jeffrey's not here right now, so I will send him a message whenever we immediately when we break out for groups and let him know that that happens. So if you want to, whoever's kind of become the lead person on that group, I kind of have a feeling that at this point I've seen we're starting to feel like I see who's standing up the most for as kind of the group leader. If you want to forward him the requirements document and feasibility report, group one, but everything about the project was spelled out really well there. So hopefully that'll make it easier on everybody. And when we split up into groups, you all can fill in your new teammate about that, which is something that's going to happen in the real world as well, right? Like I said, projects get canceled, teams get shuffled around. So in the real world, when you're working some big company, working on a team, you're going to have that happen. New team members will come in, or team members might leave, and shuffling happens. So I guess it's good practice to see that in a classroom now and figure out about the adjustments for it. So the next thing, I should have left it on Ivy Learn. The next thing on the list, there's two things coming up. The project plan, the formal plan, it's all the scheduling and stuff about how you're going to put this thing together. And then the risk assessment, because it's been mentioned before, this is the paperwork class, right? Every other class along the route through this program, software development program, is all about coding and putting the software together. This is a class where we're looking at all the other stuff involved with that, focusing on the paperwork and things like that. And yeah, I believe we're only a quarter of the way through, and we've already got more points than the actual software will be worth at the end, right? This is the paperwork class. I just left the software in there as an assignment because I figured after doing all the thinking and planning about it, you'd be twitching with anticipation to make that software after thinking about it so much. So we won't actually finish the project, but this class focuses more on the paperwork. And the next set of paperwork, again, there's a big one spread across 2 weeks. That's what we're going to talk about here in a moment. And then a smaller one that you'll turn in next week. Or actually, the big one spread across 4 weeks, really. It's spread across 2 modules. And it's an 8-module class in 16 weeks. So with more team members now, it should be a little easier to get this stuff organized and stuff. There's module 3 and 4 is the project plan. So we're going to look at some stuff like that. And that'll be due at the end of module 4, along with a risk assessment, which is like it sounds. What barriers do you see in the way? What problems do you anticipate having to overcome in order to get this project together? And that's just a quick write-up, listing out those things and possible solutions that you might think of. So as far as the risk assessment, you go ahead and start thinking about that now and letting those things rattle around in your mind. That way, when we get near the end of module 4, you can quickly list them out. It'll be really easy to list them out. The big one's the project plan. Oh, there's also a discussion board, which is just an opinion thing. Let me know your opinion about working on a team or working individually. Just very much an opinion thing there. But the big next step is the project plan. There is an ITSP class that goes over project management. Did y'all have to take that class? Is it required? It's either ITSP or INFM. I can't remember which one it's in, but it is specifically a project management class. Did anybody have that? Okay, I'm guessing that means no. So that's kind of what this is, looking at project management aspects. So here, there's a list of things. I kind of kept the default from the statewide course shell. which they might have been expecting something a little bit different than what I had. Just it talks about some of the big issues there. The main thing I wanted to look at is I did add this note in. I kept those sections there for reference to keep in mind what you want to think about. But here, I'm not looking for an essay type of assignment. This is about project management. So I want to see the outputs of project management software, screenshots and the generated reports. Or if you use the same one that I use, you can just send me the files directly, and then I'll see that stuff. It's a lot of stuff that would go together in like spreadsheets. So y'all have heard me say before, I'm a big fan of templates in the learning environment. So if we were to look for that, like project management template, probably something here, past all the ads. Oh, well, we can see from the pictures, those look like things drawn up in spreadsheets, right? Schedules and Gantt charts and that sort of stuff. So if you want to, you could come in here for, download a template, which is going to be an Excel spreadsheet that's already started out, and start filling that one out, kind of go through that stuff. But a lot of this stuff is already, there's software that does this. You've probably heard some of it. So if I open a new tab here, I'll go ahead and close that. Those are just spreadsheet templates. If you want, you can download those, but whatever spreadsheet program you use probably has some templates for project management built into it. But if we look for project management software, Monday.com, I keep seeing ads for that lately. Since I keep seeing ads for it, I assume it's not free. I've never really looked at that one, but there's lots and lots and lots of them. You check the 20 best project, these blogs are what I usually go to. Check the best of list and then see what somebody that wrote a blog about it says you should be looking for in that sort of software. They're all very, very similar. The one I've been using for a couple years is Project Libre. Like, I often use this when I'm setting up getting classes ready to help with the planning and stuff like that. Things got shuffled around. So I started using this one. It was the Libre Office Suite was supposed to be Apache's replacement to OpenOffice, but then Oracle shuffled a bunch of things around with Apache, and I don't know how all that changed, how all that might have changed. The software was available, so frankly, I never really cared enough to look to see officially who was sponsoring it, if it was still being sponsored by Apache or if Oracle moved it someplace else. The software is still available. So I've been using this one for a while and been very happy with it, Project Libre. One thing I like about it, I have it installed already. I'm going to pull it up and we'll walk through it. It's open source. I'll point at this first. So for the purposes of this class, I got rid of the old version and downloaded the official release today, but it's open source. So that means, if you like this software and want to use it, you're probably, instead of hitting that download and getting the latest release, you're probably going to click this tab that says code and navigate through these. Hopefully it won't take too long. Yeah, that's going to take a long time. But, in the long run, you're probably going to, we know software development, so we're going to click that tab that says code, download the source files, and if we want to modify it to fit our needs exactly, do something like that. But for this class, you probably just hit download the official release. I went ahead and did that. That is taking a long time. I was hoping it would go through there. This one is very, very organized. Oh, there we go. So yeah, they have all the Git stuff. I click on the core. Hopefully this won't take too long. a little bit quicker there. We eventually get down to source folders and more folders inside of that. It's highly organized, so there's a lot of folders to click through. But I think it's this level. Oh, one more. Oh, but eventually you'll get down here to these folders, and I'll just click one of them at random, and you can see it's all coded. This software is all coded up in Java. So those who are familiar with Java or the things that are similar to Java, C, C#, you can kind of make sense of it and see how those, in the long run, that's the nice thing about open source software is we go get those source files, modify them to fit our needs exactly. But for this class, it would probably be sufficient to just hit the official download, which that's kind of what I anticipated you would do. So that's what I installed on my software, so on my computer. So if you want to do the project management stuff in this software or something compatible, this does open Microsoft. It might just be Microsoft Project. I think for a second I was thinking there was another word in there, but whatever Microsoft project management software is. So anything compatible with that will open with this as well. And you just use the official download, whatever the newest one is. And before I open it up on my computer, I wanted to point out this one other thing, because it's a little ways down the road for us still. But I think in module 6, the paperwork for that week is going to include help documentation. And this one has on this watch demo button, which we're going to go over this quickly. So if you're interested, you might want to watch this demo. It's only 12 minutes long. But the developers themselves made a video stepping through that. So it's not listed in the assignment when we get to the help documentation, but that is kind of standard in the industry. When you put a piece of software together, make a YouTube video, still do the write-up, but along with the written version, do a YouTube video version of the help documentation for it. So that would be really nice to see on your projects here in a couple weeks. And it is available for this one if you think about using the same one that I use. But this is what was supposed to replace OpenOffice until Oracle started shuffling things around a couple years ago, and I've never bothered to look and see how all that affected their Office software. But the software is still there, and it'll be one of the big ones being output by Apache, originally planned to be released by Apache. So it's compatible with Microsoft Project. Go ahead and open it up here. Is there another word to that? I feel like I'm leaving a word off there. It might just be Microsoft Project, but whatever Microsoft project management stuff is. Microsoft Project.
It's Microsoft Project.
Okay, it is. Okay. Yeah, so that's obviously the big one. Yeah. I was thinking but there's a lot of them out there. If you check the blogs, or I've been seeing a whole lot of ads for Monday. So that's kind of a popular one, I guess. But this does a lot of the stuff for project management. So I'm just going to kind of go through here. Can everybody see my screen okay?
I can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah, so just create a new project. I'll just call this demo. Put myself as the manager. So there's two types of dates. There's a little checkbox here. There's forward scheduled. So that would mean we put the start date, and if you uncheck it, then we get the finish date and you schedule backwards. Whichever way you want for the class. That might be nice for the class, right? Because then you can set it for May 15th and put all the pieces together, and it'll schedule backwards from May 15th. I'm just going to go forward. A class example of project management software. And like always with software, they're all very similar. So a lot of times just starting is, it just comes down to picking one and starting to learn your way around it. And then once you start to get a feel for one, then you go start trying different ones and see which one you actually like. Right? We just have to start somewhere first. So you'll see something that looks like this. By default, we have sort of a spreadsheet table looking thing on one side and the schedule on the some schedule stuff, and we can start filling this in. So what have we done so far? Proposal. Then like here it's saying that's expected to take 1 day, change that, maybe that's a 4-day process. And we can fill in different things, requirements. What else do we do? Planning, coding, testing. I'll put release. I guess in the classroom we would really call that submitting or whatever. And then we can schedule how long we expect that to take. So maybe the requirements, we expect that to take that at least a week. We spend a couple weeks on it. Let's start adding things like that. Project planning, I guess we're gonna spend a week on that. Coding, spend 21 days. Testing, I don't know, I'll just put 12 and then release there at the end. And you can see it's starting to form the Gantt chart automatically. We can link things together. You can like click on it and drag a line. Whoops. Undo that. Let me drag it this way. So now those are, it's like a prerequisite for that. So can't start the planning phase. So the requirements phase is done by these lists here. Things that have to be done before it. Resources that are available. Let's see. I'm just going to look at task. And then the different types of charts. A network chart. You may have also heard this called a PERT chart. That's what I always heard was the official name of it, a PERT chart. But here at Project Libre, they call it a network chart. The work breakdown structure, just the different parts and things. Task usage, like showing how much is applied to each thing. I'll add some resources in here. We'll come over to the resources tab. Let's see, what do we need? Probably need some sort of domain host. What type of thing is that? That's gonna be like a material, sort of a one-time thing. But we're in the classroom, so we're going to be using free domain hosting. But to practice for the real world, go ahead and apply some pricing like there would be, and just pretend like there's numbers there. I think some of y'all have heard me say this in other classes, but we do all these, like on proposals and things like that. We have the big, nice page after page after page describing everything and saying how it's going to go together. But really, there's only 2 lines people care about. When do they get it and how much does it cost? So, and in the classroom, those are both as trivial as can be, right? The deadline is the end of the semester or the due date or something like that. And in the classroom, the cost is pretty much free because we're students. So those are trivial in the classroom, but you can make up numbers to practice for that. Make up some numbers and see how well it fits with it. So maybe, I don't know, I'm just going to put something in like $39.99 for the cost of that. Add it on the calendar. I'll call one coding. That'll be work, and say the coders are making, I don't know, $19.75 per hour. And we get prorate that, so that means it's spread across there, or instead of prorated, we could just apply it at the end of the process or at the start of the process, whenever that bill is going to come into play. And think about the things like that. They're going to be on there. You'll see different charts for that. Right now, that's saying we haven't used any of those because we haven't assigned any of them. Like here, neither one of those resources is being used at all. So if we go back over to the like the Gantt chart, the main one, we can assign some resources to these. Like here in the spreadsheet section, over in the resource section, planning, I'll put the domain there. I can't remember which one was which. Down here somewhere under coding and testing, I'll put code, type in the name here. I don't see a sideways scroll bar. There it is. Yeah, so you can see it applies those resources. So now over in our work breakdown structure, we can see those costs have been applied now, and it's automatically tracking all that. Or in resource usage, we now see how much, we can see that it started throwing some numbers in there and giving us project estimates and things like that. So all, you could do all that manually in a spreadsheet, but I would highly recommend using some project management software to put that together. And because what I'm wanting to see isn't really an essay, I want to see like screenshots and the reports generated from this. And you can click around in here, see there's a lot of other stuff. So different information, things we can add. That doesn't seem to pull anything up from there. You have to come over here. Yeah, and then like color coding to show that both of those resources are being applied in the project, and all the thinking and scheduling and budgeting, that sort of stuff. You pull up a calendar and kind of set what days you are working days, right? Like take Monday off the working calendar so that all the schedules adjust and things like that. I pointed out that the people that developed this software do have like a 12-minute YouTube video. It'll be helpful to see all that. And as time progresses, you'll see these things kind of get updated with all the updates on how it's going, and things can kind of will adjust and update. So they're like baselines showing things like that. It's at different baselines. So you have your original plan, and if something changes along the way, make a second baseline so that all the scheduling and everything, scheduling, budgeting, and all of that updates all the way through. And you can still compare it to the different baselines, show what's showing, set different milestones, like, on a certain date, you should be at a certain point. When tasks are linked together. So if I link these, did it link? I don't think it linked. I link those together. Instead of doing a right click, maybe it's not right click. Whoop. Put that back here. Somewhere, I don't see it under there. Somewhere there was a button I was looking for that maybe it was like this. If I highlight, undo that link, and I'll link it this way. You can also like highlight different rows here, like it's a spreadsheet, and then hit the link button. And I think I'll get options here. Nope, that put them right next to each other. Somewhere there's ways you can change how these link to each other. Maybe I have to click on this. Oh, there it is. So clicking right on the arrow, instead of having those right after each other, like the finish start line up, you set it so that they both finish at the same time. Like both those tasks have to be finished at the same time, or Both of them start at the same time and set up different things like that. What are the other options? Start and finish. Yeah, so that one of them has to be finished before the other one starts, or they run at the same time, or they have to finish at the same time. However you want the different tasks to be set up. I think this is the default one. Yeah, and then how long is each one going to take and all of that stuff, and what resources are available. This is software to manage all of that. You can type it manually in a spreadsheet. It's just a whole lot easier to use this software, and there's lots and lots of these softwares. They're all over the place in different industries, definitely in the software development industry. So you're probably going to want to be a little bit familiar with software or project management software. So for the next step, the project plan, this is the sort of thing I'd like to see. There are some reports it'll generate. Project, I just hit PDF. I think it'll throw up a few things. I'll save that somewhere. This will probably work. There's ways to kind of customize what's in the report. So I just hit the generic, throw up a report about it. Eventually it should load. Okay, yeah. So the generic throw up a report doesn't seem very helpful, but it's got the resources and some of the overall information. But there's ways to customize what's in the report, or what I'd like to see is maybe screenshots of this. Take a bunch of screenshots and put them together in a document to fill out a report. If customizing the report seemed like it might be a little bit tricky. But it's very, very useful software. It's standard in a lot of industries, definitely in software development. So you're going to want to get familiar with it at some point, and that's kind of what the next thing is for. There's a lot of buttons, and yeah, when you get started on, you kind of just have to start somewhere. So this is the one I've been using for a couple of years. Oh yeah, we have more charts up here. Here we can turn things on at the bottom and see the usage of resource usage, how they apply, different things like work and actual work remaining. Oh yeah, I guess I might as well do this. There's a couple ways to adjust this. The easiest way is as things get done, you can click and drag through the bar. So then it shows, like, what is that? Maybe a third of the way through the project. And then that also tracks how it's going on the schedule. Then at some points we might need to, if it's not going so well, stretch this back and change all that, or change the start dates on different things. And yeah, it's just a whole lot of tools that should be useful for scheduling the resources you have to work with and the time you have to work with and everything to manage the project. So you'll probably want to just kind of click your way around that and get a sense of what's going on with those. A couple other things about reports. But a whole lot of tools in there, and yeah, it does take a minute to get used to. So be prepared to start with a couple scratch projects. So your first couple projects are going to be scratch, and then you'll figure it out, because some things need done in a certain order. The things will need done like basically the order I just did them in here. So you want to make sure and give everything a name and the amount of time it's going to take first, and then start doing everything else. So make sure that's the big one. Make sure you come to the Gantt, click the Gantt chart, and give all of your tasks a name and an estimated, a starting estimate on how long it's going to take. And then it's a lot easier to get all the other parts going. And yeah, if you just kind of click your way around it. A lot of it should make sense. You can see, you can group things together and create summaries that'll sort of expand and collapse afterwards, and just organize, basically all the tools to organize your thoughts. And this is the one I use. So if you use this or Microsoft Project, if you have that, or anything compatible with Microsoft Project, I'll be able to see that. And yeah, a lot of different dialog boxes and things like that. Y'all can click your way around that. And the developers made a 12-minute YouTube video, which is something to keep in mind that has become almost standard when we get to that help menu section. I believe it's in week 6, or sorry, module 6, which is like week 12. That one of the standards for a help menu anymore is a YouTube video. And I'm always happy when I realize that the YouTube video came directly from the programmers. They might not be the best at making videos, but they are the ones that know the software. One of the best I've ever seen with that was some CAD stuff, or actually it was BIM stuff. This software called Reddit, or not Reddit, Revit. Reddit's social media with a V. It's one of those, it's the super fancy software where you draw the blueprints of a house and it generates the 3D model from the blueprints. So it's kind of complicated to work with, but the software developers that made the program did an entire YouTube series stepping through it. They're not good at making videos. They're great at developing software. So even though it's kind of lower quality video, it is the best instruction on how to use their software. So that's something to keep in mind when we get to that. And it's only like a 12-minute video for this one. But project management software is definitely something that you're going to want to be familiar with, because it's used in most industries and especially used heavily in software development. So that's that. And the risk assessment will be due at the same time, but that's kind of like it sounds. Just list out all the problems you anticipate happen. What risk do you have? What risk are you facing as you move into starting this project? And that's just a list, so you can start thinking about it now, and that way it only takes a few minutes to type up that list after you've thought about it for a couple weeks. That's the next set of paperwork. The reading this week is fairly straightforward. The chapters are called things like dependability and reliability, kind of the obvious stuff that we want to include in our software. So it's a lot of tips on, well, those two in particular, that's going to come up in testing, right? When you test, that's one of the big things we're doing in testing, is making sure our software is dependable, making sure that it's going to last. If somebody leaves their computer on for an entire weekend while they're away from the office, is that software going to keep doing small things in the background and overload the CPU by Monday morning? Have everything froze up at some stuck part? I'm going to check for things like that. But that stuff should be fairly obvious, right? The name to the chapter kind of says it all there. The dependability of the software. Can the user count on it to do what it's supposed to do over and over and over and over again? And if there are limitations, what are those limitations? You want to make sure the user knows those going in. Because sometimes you might be making really big software that is obviously going to be restricted and limited. First thing springing to my mind is engineering simulation stuff. Most any computer, you go to Walmart and any computer off the shelf is going to run your basic CAD stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to run a big, thorough physics simulation with it, right? It'll run the software to draw all the pieces for a car, but that cheap computer off the shelf at Walmart probably isn't going to work for a simulation with when you put all those pieces together and try to apply the laws of physics. It's going to start bogging down a little bit. Logistics software, a common problem in computers, it has been for decades, is what's called the traveling salesman problem. Anybody ever encountered that in any of your classes? So this is one that UPS deals with heavily every day. So the idea is maybe you have 4 cities, A, B, C, D, and your salesman needs to get to every one of those cities. You know, there's a client in every single city. What is the most efficient route for the salesman to travel and hit every city without backtracking or minimizing the backtracking? The quickest way, you know, maybe 12 miles across there, 4 miles to those cities. I drew it as a square, but I think you all have seen maps before, right? If we go randomly connect 4 cities, we're probably not going to get a square.
Kind of like Google Maps.
Yeah, like 26 miles over there. Yeah, I'm just making up numbers here instead of doing the actual math. 17 miles there, 24 miles between those cities, and then, you know, in more complicated situations, things like speed limits, traffic congestion. What's the best way for your salesman to visit all 4 of these places? The most efficient route to take. And the reason that's a common one in computers is because the only way we can do that is what's known as a depth first search. That basically means we have to simulate running every possible route between those cities and see which one's best. And this is something like UPS does every morning. Right? UPS takes it to the extreme. Like you all may have heard before, UPS drivers aren't allowed to turn left at a stoplight because it's more efficient to turn right. Because you probably don't have to wait to turn. You don't have to wait as long to turn right at the stoplight as you do to turn left. So the computer goes through and figures out their route for them. The other ones, they don't go to that extreme, but they still have to do things like this. And if you're like planning out a city's worth of UPS drivers, you have 100 drivers that all need to make 500 stops, and your computer algorithm has to check every possible route they could take in order to figure out what the best one is. You're not going to do that on a cheap computer. You're not going to do that on a computer that does anything except that, right? It's got to be a big fancy computer dedicated to that one sole purpose. Yeah, this is one, the big O, the measure of efficiency is factorial. It's factorial. It's like the least efficient thing there is. So if we go from 4 cities, that means there's 4 factorial. There's 4 factorial things routes that it has to check, which is 24. If we add 1 more city, so 5 factorial is 120. It has to check 120 different things. Go up to 6 factorial, and the computer has to check 720 things. The factorials grow very, very quickly. So the efficiency completely falls apart on this classic problem. And the term for it is depth first search. That means we have to check every possible option and then compare the results, which get very, very big. I remember when I did it in a computer science class, I finished it early, wasn't due till the following week. So over the weekend, I just set my cheap laptop running it, and I think I had like 19 cities, and it took most of the weekend to just run this simple algorithm, like add up all these numbers, add up A, B, C, D, right in order, back to A, then add up A, C, D, B, A, and add up all those numbers and compare them. Seems like a small thing, so it doesn't take much to write the code, but when the computer has to do it 19 factorial times, it takes a long time. So things like that. I drifted into that talking about the dependability, right? If users need that from a software developer, they're going to want to know those restrictions and limitations up front, right? What's required for that software. So that's sort of thing that kind of goes along with the paperwork, right? It's not something you want to hide in the background. It's something you want to make sure is up front. Is very, very clear, which is a big issue on the news this week, right? You want to make sure whatever your software is, that it is absolutely clear to the users what is going on. Because it can be a very, very big deal if, well, it turned into a very, very big deal this week because that was a big issue, but there was some ambiguity. The users of the software, users of a particular software, which obviously I'm trying to avoid the name of right now, but hopefully everybody knows what I'm talking about, they weren't really they didn't completely understand everything going on in the software. And some things were swept to the background. And even when it reached the point of this week that Congress was demanding answers about that, they're still trying to kind of dance around it. You want to avoid that stuff. You gotta make sure the user knows what's in there. If there's limitations, let them know about that. And that way up front, you can let them know what those limitations are and why they're there. So that they have to be worked around, things like that. And that just kind of falls into dependability and reliability. The software is going to do what it says it's going to do. And as always, the textbook has that spelled out really well. There's some great information in here, but it's definitely a textbook. You want to have plenty of caffeine when you sit down and drink to read that. It's good information presented very, very clearly. It's not like reading a Harry Potter book or something that'll keep you awake. But it's spelled out in the reading assignments. If you have any questions about that, or when the quizzes come up, let me know. We can talk about that more. We can talk about that a little bit more next week. But the main thing coming up, the next big paperwork issue, is the project plan, which is project management stuff. So I guess unless somebody had questions, we can go ahead and split up into groups and kind of get started on the project management stuff.
Can I ask something?
Good.
Yes. Trevin?
All right. When do you think Amazon Web Services will be ready?
I got the email today.
Oh, okay.
So I can activate that at any point.
Right.
I am brand new to AWS as well. So if we could do it on a free one, like you all mentioned, 000 web host, I've been using that one for years, and I've been very, very happy, and it's been free.
All right.
Yeah, but we can talk about it. I got the email today that said it's ready. So apparently that takes a week to turn on. Kind of another thing on the list of, at least for me, and one more item on the list of not very happy with Amazon Web Services in the classroom. We're under kind of tight time constraints to be waiting 5 weeks to activate accounts and then another week to do anything with those accounts. That doesn't fit very well in an 8-week schedule.
Yeah.
But maybe it'll speed up as we move forward. So I'm still new to that one. But what you put in your feasibility thing last week about the 000webhost.com, I've been using them for years and have been very, very happy with their services.
All right.
So the Amazon one will probably be better for a fallback, but it is there. And another thing, I've been using that other one for years so I can answer questions and stuff about that. I'm brand new to Amazon Web Services myself. I put off using it in the classroom so that I could spend a few months learning my way around so that I can answer questions. I'm sure there will be some. Any other questions?
Yeah.
Hey, Chris. Oh, I'm sorry.
No,
Somebody else have a question? Okay, I just wanted to let everybody know you can get a free copy of that the Microsoft project as students. I'm not sure if everybody's aware of this, but I got mine through GitHub, It's a GitHub education developer pack that's free to students. And it gives you access to Microsoft Azure, and you can download Project, you can download Visio, you can download a lot of those different types of softwares that would help, I think, with this class or any class really. And it also gives you free access to like Visual Studio Professional. So if anybody uses, C++ or Visual Basic or whatever, I just thought it was cool for let everybody know if they wanted access to that free software.
Thank you. Yeah, because that stuff's normally very expensive, so you can get it for free. There's a good chance that's the one you would see out in the industry, right? Working with Microsoft and the project management stuff done in Microsoft Project and the coding done in Visual Studio. Those are kind of industry standards. Microsoft tends to have most of the market. It did come out this week. I don't know if anybody saw it, but Chrome OS finally passed MacBook. So the Mac dropped to the third most common operating system this week. My next purchase is going to be a Chromebook because I'm seeing it more and more. And it was like AWS. When I see them, people are sending me questions, and I don't know much about Chromebooks yet. I need to learn my way around them. Did you have a question, Craig?
Yeah. About our project planning, how we had everything in like time schedules. What if it's more not like that? Like our requirements, how we would keep going back and refining them and stuff. How would we put that on our project plan?
If you're using project planning software, you'll just set up your estimates on how long it's going to be, and then it'll adjust, and everything else will adjust with it.
Yeah. Well, like if it's like can't say the word, like recurring. You know what I'm saying?
So for something like that on the Gantt chart, you would probably just have it going the whole way.
Okay, we just have it the whole.
Yeah.
Okay.
So refinement things, or typically you could either have it go the whole way. It's just something that's always there, or I will have it. You can set recurring task, so it shows up, after so many places, like a milestone.
Yeah. Okay.
Shows up as a milestone. So like after so many tasks get carried out, you check to see if it needs revised.
Okay.
And to see if it's time to do all that.
And the planning project, it's not just that those pictures and stuff that you want. We have to write something too with that, right?
It'll just be a little bit of write-up. I'm mostly wanting to see the schedule and stuff, and maybe a paragraph or two explaining it. But mostly, I was kind of wanting you all to mess around and get used to project management software.
Okay. And we're not supposed to like start working on like who's doing coding, right, yet?
It will go on the schedule.
It'll go in the schedule too with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, like we're not ready to start coding yet, but that's something that's going to be scheduled.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And then so you can go ahead and start breaking down the task for that. And it's scheduling like you would do before the project starts.
Yeah.
So obviously it can be changed later, but your thoughts about like, I don't know who's doing what, but like you working on the Django stuff while Corey works on the Bootstrap stuff. You can go ahead and list that on the project, the plan. Okay. Even if it's going to change later, like maybe you're going to start on that the middle of March, and she's going to start on the front end stuff the 1st of April. I'm just throwing out random numbers there. We probably start at the same time, but does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. I got you.
So Chris, is there no rough draft this time?
There's 2 submissions, but yeah, the rough draft will be since we'll be using the project management software. Hopefully, you can do it all in a spreadsheet if you would prefer and type it all in manually. Whenever we do group stuff, like maybe next week, I'll just look at it. I'll look at how it's going. And we split up into the groups after a week or, well, this is due at the end of module 4. So that's what, 3 weeks from now?
I believe so.
Yeah. So so sometime between now and then, I'll look at how it's going and just make sure it's going along the way.
So we can get your feedback before. Okay.
Hmm.
That's what I was checking on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What were you saying, Greg?
I want to make sure I got all this right. So when we start actually coding, it's going to go. You know?
All the planning is should keep the coding, should make it very easy when you get to the coding. Make it all go smooth, and you'll have more time to think about it. But ultimately, in this class, this is kind of the paperwork class. Our main focus is on the paperwork, right? Learning how to do all the UML diagrams nicely and convey that information that way, and breaking down requirements like we were seeing. Like I think we've already got more points than the actual piece of software will be worth. And we're only a quarter of the way into the thing. So it's kind of a small one. I know that seems like that's what we keep talking about, and that's what all this planning is going towards, but really this class is about learning the paperwork that goes along with it. And then hopefully at the end, when you get to that point, like you were just mentioning, it'll all go quick and smooth because the whole group will have already been thinking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks as all the schedules and come together and the risks are analyzed and requirements are revised and all that stuff. All that thinking will pay off in the end. You'll just sit down at the keyboards and just like knock it out really, really quick. Any other questions? Okay, so let's split up into groups, and I will send Jeffrey an email to tell him to expect to hear from you, Craig, Josh, I guess you can start by sending him the requirements and feasibility stuff that you have. And so I will send him an email immediately, and then I will be in to do for the kind of weekly checkout. So just 2 rooms this week. Room 1 is Craig and Josh. And room 2, Devin, and Trevin, Kenneth, and Zachary. All right, y'all see your buttons? So I'm going to stop the recording, and I will be in there to check on you in just a moment.